When I saw the message from my mom saying, "We no longer trust you," it felt like someone had punched the air out of my lungs. I just stared at my phone, reading it over and over, hoping I misunderstood. But I hadn't. That was the moment I realized something had completely changed in my family. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. I remember the exact moment it happened. I was at my apartment, about to make dinner after a long day at work, when her message popped up. It didn't even start with "hi" or "honey." Just a cold, sharp sentence that ended everything I thought I knew about my family. My hands started shaking. My first thought was that maybe something terrible had happened, and she was upset. But when I called, no one answered. Not her, not Dad, not even my brother. I sent a few texts asking what was wrong, but the silence that followed was louder than any fight we had ever had. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every conversation, every memory, trying to figure out where I went wrong. Had I said something to offend them? Did I forget something important? I thought of every possible reason, but nothing made sense. We had talked just last week. Everything seemed fine. I had even sent them a small gift to celebrate my mom's birthday. But now, all of a sudden, I was being treated like a stranger. The next day, I tried calling again. Still nothing. The calls went straight to voicemail. I left one message saying, "Mom, please, I don't understand. Can we talk?" But deep down, I felt like she wasn't going to respond. Something had happened, and I wasn't sure if it was about me or something much bigger. I had never known my mom to be this cold. She was strict, yes, but she always talked things through. This was different. This was calculated. I sat in silence for hours, scrolling through old messages, looking for clues. Everything seemed normal. Her asking about work, me telling her about my projects, her saying she was proud of me. Nothing hinted at anger or disappointment. Then, when I finally stopped searching, a strange calm came over me. Maybe I needed to let them reach out when they were ready. Maybe pushing would only make things worse. But 2 days later, something unexpected happened. I received an email from a law firm. At first, I thought it was a mistake, but then I saw the subject line. Regarding your recent family financial agreement. My heart dropped. It had my parents' lawyer's name on it. For a moment, I couldn't even open it. I just sat there, frozen, staring at the screen. When I finally clicked on it, I realized this wasn't just about emotions. It was about money, power, and betrayal. That was the moment I understood my parents' message wasn't sent out of anger. It was sent out of fear. And soon, I would learn exactly what they were afraid of. Growing up, I honestly believed I had the best family anyone could ask for. My parents, Susan and Robert Miller, were known in our Colorado town as kind, hardworking, and deeply family-oriented people. My dad ran a small construction business, and my mom worked part-time at the local library. Everyone admired how close we seemed. We had family dinners every night, went to church on Sundays, and took road trips every summer. My younger brother, Adam, and I never went without love or support, or at least that's what I believed back then. From a young age, my parents taught us about loyalty and honesty. My mom always said, "Family comes before everything." I took that to heart. Whenever they needed help, I was there. I worked hard in school, got a scholarship, and built a career that I thought would make them proud. Everything I did, every late night, every decision, I did with them in mind. They were my role models. But as I got older, small cracks began to show. My parents treated Adam and me differently. He was the carefree one who always got another chance. I was the responsible one, the one who never got to make mistakes. Whenever Adam failed at something, Mom would say, "He's just trying to find his path." But when I stumbled, it turned into a long talk about how I should set a better example. Still, I never complained. I believe they pushed me because they trusted me more. After college, I got a great job offer in San Francisco. It was a big move, but my parents seemed thrilled at first. My dad even helped me pack the car. My mom cried at the airport, saying how proud she was of me. I thought I was doing everything right, living proof that their hard work and lessons had paid off. I called them every week, sent gifts, and visited whenever I could. But something started to change, and I could feel it even through the phone. The conversations grew shorter. My mom sounded distant, like she was forcing herself to talk. Dad kept saying he was busy with the business. When I offered to help them financially, they refused at first, but later, they began to accept small transfers. I didn't think twice about it. They were my parents, and helping them made me happy. Still, the warmth I used to feel from them faded. When I came home for Christmas, Mom barely hugged me. She seemed tense, watching everything I said. Adam looked uncomfortable too, avoiding eye contact during dinner. I told myself it was just family stress, that things would get better once I stayed longer. But instead, every conversation felt heavier, like they were testing me or waiting for me to say something wrong. It wasn't until much later that I realized what had really changed. My success didn't make them proud, it made them uneasy. I had become a reminder of what they hadn't achieved, and instead of celebrating me, they started comparing, questioning, and eventually resenting. The family that once stood for trust and loyalty had quietly started to turn against its own. And I was too blinded by love to see it coming. When I got the promotion, I couldn't stop smiling. It felt like all the years of hard work had finally paid off. My new position came with a big salary increase, and I was proud, not just for myself, but for my parents. They had worked so hard to raise me, to give me a good education, and to teach me discipline. I wanted to give something back. So the first thing I did was call my mom to tell her the news. At first, she sounded happy. She said, "Wow, honey, that's great," but her tone didn't match her words. It was flat, almost distracted. I brushed it off, thinking maybe she was tired or busy. Later that night, I sent her a message saying I wanted to help them pay off their mortgage. It wasn't a small amount, but I wanted to do it. It felt like the right way to thank them for everything they had done. When I visited home a few weeks later, I expected joy and excitement. Instead, the house felt different. My dad congratulated me briefly and changed the subject. My mom barely looked at me when I mentioned the promotion. She asked about my job, but her questions felt sharp, almost like she was looking for something to criticize. Then she said something that stung. Adam could have done great things too if life had been fair to him. It caught me off guard. I didn't know how to respond. Adam had been struggling to find stable work for years, but I always supported him. I helped him with his resume, sent him money when he needed it, even talked to people who could offer him jobs. But somehow, my mom made it sound like my success was unfair to him. I felt a tightness in my chest, but tried to keep things calm. I said, "Mom, I just want to help all of us. This isn't a competition." She didn't reply. She just nodded and walked away to check something in the kitchen. That night at dinner, the tension grew. Adam barely spoke. When he did, he joked about me finally being the rich one. My parents laughed, but it didn't sound warm. It sounded bitter. The more I talked about my work, the quieter they became. It was as if every word I said reminded them of something they didn't want to hear. I stopped talking about my job altogether after that. When I left for San Francisco again, I felt uneasy. My dad hugged me, but my mom didn't come to the door. On the drive back, I kept thinking about that look in her eyes, something between sadness and anger. I didn't know it then, but that was the start of everything falling apart. Over the next few months, our calls became colder. My mom mentioned Adam more often, always with a tone that made me feel guilty for doing well. I still tried to help, sending money when I could, asking how things were going, but her replies became shorter and colder. It felt like no matter what I did, it was wrong. I thought families celebrated each other's success. I never imagined that mine would see mine as a reason to turn against me. A few months after my promotion, my mom called me one evening, sounding unusually warm. She said, "Sweetheart, your dad and I wanted to talk to you about something important." Her tone was softer than it had been in weeks, and for a moment, it felt like things were back to normal. I smiled, thinking maybe she was ready to reconnect. But what she said next caught me off guard. She explained that my dad's business was struggling a bit, and that they had come up with an idea to create a family investment fund. She said it would help secure Adam's future and stabilize the company so things could grow again. "It's not just for us," she said gently. "It's for the whole family. We want everyone to have something stable for the long run." I didn't think twice about it. They were my parents. They had never asked me for anything big before, and if this could help the family, I was more than willing. I told her I'd handle the transfer right away. My mom hesitated for a second, then added, "It would mean so much to your father if we could do this quietly, just between us." That should have been a red flag. But I didn't question it. I believed them completely. I transferred $150,000 into my dad's business account within a few days. I didn't ask for paperwork or proof. I didn't even tell my accountant. I trusted that it was going to something good, something that would help all of us. After the transfer, My parents thanked me in the most casual way. No big talk, no long messages. Just a short, "Thank you, honey, we'll make this work for the family." I didn't expect anything more, but something about their tone felt distant. I tried to ignore it. I told myself they were just busy trying to figure things out. Weeks passed, and I didn't hear much about how the family fund was doing. Whenever I asked, my dad would brush it off, saying, "It's going great, don't worry." My mom started avoiding the topic altogether. Once, when I brought it up, she said sharply, "Why do you always ask about money? Don't you trust us?" That question stunned me. I had never once doubted them. If anything, I'd gone out of my way to prove that I trusted them. Slowly, I began to notice small changes. My calls went unanswered more often. My texts were left on read. Adam started acting strange too, distant, defensive, even rude at times. I didn't understand what was happening, but I kept telling myself it would pass. Family fights happen, right? But the uneasy feeling in my chest kept growing. It wasn't about the money. It was about how they were acting. Something didn't feel right. It was as if the moment I gave them that money, they built a wall between us. I didn't realize it then, but that decision, trusting them without question, was the turning point. I had handed them not just my money, but my blind faith. And that trust was about to be broken in the most painful way possible. It had been weeks since my parents last spoke to me properly. Every time I called, they were either busy or in a rush to hang up. My mom stopped sending her usual morning texts, and my dad barely replied to my messages. Even Adam had gone quiet. Something was wrong, but no one would tell me what it was. I tried not to overthink it, but the silence was eating me alive. One evening, after another long day at work, I sat in my apartment staring at my phone. I hadn't heard from them in almost 2 weeks. I decided to text my mom, keeping it simple. "Hey Mom, is everything okay? You've been quiet lately." I waited, expecting her to respond with a casual excuse like she always did. But hours passed and there was nothing. I made dinner, cleaned up, even went for a short walk to calm myself. But I couldn't stop checking my phone every few minutes. Finally, around 10 p.m., my phone buzzed. My heart jumped. It was from Mom. For a split second, I smiled, relieved she had finally replied. But when I opened the message, my entire body froze. It said, "We no longer trust you. Don't contact us again." That was it. No explanation. No call. Just that single message. I read it again and again, convinced I had missed something. My hands were trembling, and I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. I tried to call her immediately, but she didn't answer. I called my dad, straight to voicemail. I texted Adam, asking what was going on, but he didn't reply either. It was like my entire family had vanished overnight. I sat there for hours, staring at my phone, hoping it was a mistake. Maybe she sent it to the wrong person? Maybe she meant something else? But deep down, I knew she hadn't. Every word was deliberate. Cold. Final. The woman who used to check on me every morning had just cut me out of her life without a reason. Sleep was impossible that night. I kept pacing around the room, trying to think of what I could have done. Did they find out something about the business? Did I offend them without realizing it? I went over every conversation in my head, searching for an answer that didn't exist. Nothing made sense. The next morning, I tried again. I called from my work phone this time, thinking maybe they were blocking my number. But still no answer. When I checked social media, I noticed my mom's account was gone. My dad's too. It was as if they had erased themselves from my world. The hardest part wasn't the silence. It was the confusion. I could have handled anger, even disappointment, but not this cold, sudden rejection from the people I loved most. I felt like a child again, desperate for my mother's reassurance. But there was none. Just that message sitting on my screen, burning into my mind. "We no longer trust you." In that moment, I realized something deep had broken, not just in our relationship, but inside me. I didn't know why they did it, but I knew things would never be the same again. 2 days after my mother's message, I was still in shock. I hadn't eaten properly, hadn't slept, and couldn't focus on work. My thoughts kept going back to her words. "We no longer trust you." I didn't know what it meant, but I felt something deeper was going on. I tried calling again that morning, but once more, no one answered. I was starting to accept that my parents were gone from my life when my phone rang from an unknown number. At first, I thought maybe it was Mom or Dad calling from a different phone. I quickly answered, my heart racing. But it wasn't either of them. A calm male voice introduced himself as Mr. Lewis, a lawyer representing my parents. My stomach dropped. He said, "Miss Miller, I'm reaching out regarding the family business and certain funds under your name." I froze. My voice cracked as I asked, "What do you mean?" He went on to explain, in a tone that sounded more practiced than sympathetic, that my parents had filed a legal request to remove my name from the family business account. According to him, they believed I no longer had a rightful claim to any funds connected to the business or the so-called family investment account. He said, "Your parents informed us that the $150,000 transfer you made was a gift, and therefore, you have no ownership or legal claim over it." For a few seconds, I couldn't speak. It felt like my chest was tightening. A gift? That was the word they were using now. My parents, the same people who had said the money was to support the family and the business, were now trying to erase me from everything. The message from my mom suddenly made sense. They weren't just cutting me off emotionally. They were preparing to take everything I had given them. But what they didn't know was that I had kept everything. Every text, every email, every transfer confirmation, I had it all. I wasn't suspicious when I saved those messages. It was just something I did for work and personal records. But now, that habit became my lifeline. I calmly told the lawyer, that money wasn't a gift. I have proof. He paused for a moment and then asked if I could provide documentation. I said, absolutely. I'll have my attorney contact you. The second I hung up, my hands were shaking. I had never imagined needing a lawyer against my own parents, but I knew I couldn't let them take advantage of me like that. I called a close friend, Megan, who worked as an attorney. When I explained what happened, she went quiet for a moment and then said, "You need to stay calm. They're trying to intimidate you. Send me every document you have." That evening, I gathered everything: screenshots, bank statements, call logs. I read through old messages where my mom thanked me for helping the family get back on its feet. It hurt to see those words, knowing what came after, but they were proof of the truth. I didn't want to fight, but now I didn't have a choice. My parents had betrayed me completely, emotionally and financially. What they didn't realize, though, was that this time, I wasn't powerless. I was ready to defend myself, no matter how painful it would be. The day after I spoke to my parents' lawyer, I met with Megan at her office. She had been my friend since college, but that day she wasn't just a friend. She was my attorney. I brought a folder filled with every document, email, and screenshot I had saved. She went through them one by one, her expression growing more serious with each page. When she finally looked up, she said quietly, "They don't have a case. You do." Hearing those words made me feel both relieved and heartbroken. I didn't want to fight my parents, but they had forced my hand. Megan explained that by trying to remove my name from the business and reclassify the transfer as a gift, they were committing fraud. I had written records proving it was meant as a family investment, and there were even messages from my dad acknowledging the purpose. Everything was clear. We spent the next few days building the case. Megan drafted a response letter to their lawyer, attaching the evidence and warning that if my parents continued with their claim, we would take legal action. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about standing up for myself. I had been quiet for too long, trying to keep peace, but this time, I couldn't stay silent. A few days later, Megan forwarded me an email from their lawyer, Mr. Lewis. His tone was very different from before. Gone was the confidence, the legal arrogance. Instead, his message was short and cautious. He wrote that he wanted to discuss a possible resolution and avoid escalating things further. Megan smirked when she read it. "He's nervous," she said. "He knows they're in trouble." That same afternoon, my phone rang again. It was Mr. Lewis himself. I hesitated before answering, unsure if I was ready to hear his voice. When I did, he sounded surprisingly calm, but there was tension underneath. "Miss Miller," he said, "I believe there's been a misunderstanding between you and your parents. Perhaps we can resolve this privately." For the first time, I didn't let emotion take over. I simply said, "There is no misunderstanding. I know exactly what they tried to do." There was silence on the line for a moment, then he cleared his throat and replied, "I see. Well, I'll speak with them again." And just like that, the conversation ended. When I told Megan about the call, she nodded. "He's backtracking. They didn't expect you to stand up for yourself." That made sense. My parents had probably assumed I would stay quiet and let them handle things. They had counted on my trust and my love to keep me from fighting back. But this time, love wasn't enough to blind me. Later that night, I sat alone in my apartment, thinking about everything that had happened. I felt a strange mix of sadness and strength. It hurt knowing my parents could do this to me, but for the first time, I wasn't just reacting. I was taking control. They wanted to make me powerless. Instead, I showed them that I was stronger than they thought. And even though the legal fight wasn't over, I knew one thing for sure. This time, they couldn't twist the truth. I had it all in writing, and no one could take that away from me. A week after my parents' lawyer backed off, everything started to fall apart. I thought the silence that followed meant they were regrouping, but I didn't expect what came next. One afternoon, while I was working from home, my phone rang. It was Adam. I hadn't heard from him in months. His name flashing on the screen made my chest tighten. I almost didn't answer, afraid of what he might say, but something in me knew I needed to. The moment I said hello, I heard him crying. It wasn't just soft crying. It was the kind of broken sob that made my heart ache. Between gasps, he said, "I'm so sorry, Emily. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." For a second, I didn't understand what he meant. Then he started talking fast, trying to explain everything at once. He told me that Mom had told him a completely different story. She said I had stopped helping the family, that I was selfish, and that I had taken the family fund money to invest in my own company. She claimed I had turned my back on them. Adam said he believed her because she showed him fake screenshots of messages, ones she had edited to make me look guilty. When I heard that, I felt sick. My own mother had faked messages to turn my brother against me. I couldn't even process how far she had gone. Adam kept apologizing over and over, saying he had been angry at me for months. He said Mom and Dad had been fighting constantly since the lawyer backed down, blaming each other for everything. Apparently, my dad had accused her of going too far and risking legal trouble, while she blamed him for letting me win. It was heartbreaking to hear. The parents I once saw as strong and united were now tearing each other apart. Adam said the house had become unbearable, shouting, slammed doors, sleepless nights. He finally left and moved in with a friend just to escape the tension. That's when he decided to look through the emails himself and found the real ones. The ones I had sent months ago confirming that the money was for the family business. That's when he realized Mom had lied. Hearing all this felt like a punch in the gut. I wanted to be angry, but instead I just felt empty. I asked Adam quietly, "Why did she do it?" He didn't answer right away. Then he said something I'll never forget. "She couldn't handle you not needing them anymore." That one sentence hit harder than anything else. Maybe he was right. Maybe their love had been conditional, safe only as long as I stayed dependent. The moment I stood on my own, they saw me as someone they could use or control. Before hanging up, Adam told me he didn't know if Mom and Dad's marriage would survive. He said they were barely speaking and that Dad had threatened to leave. I didn't feel any satisfaction in hearing that. Just sadness. The family that had once been my world had destroyed itself over money and pride. After that call, I sat in silence for a long time. I realized that no legal victory could fix what was broken. My parents had lied, my brother had been used, and trust, the one thing I thought we always had, was gone forever. The Millers weren't a family anymore. They were just pieces of something that used to be whole. Months passed after Adam's call. Life started to calm down a little, but there were still days when the memories hit me hard. Some nights I would lie awake, thinking about how things used to be, Sunday dinners, road trips, and my mom's warm laugh. Those memories didn't feel real anymore. It was like they belonged to another lifetime, one where I still believed that family meant unconditional love. I didn't hear from my parents during that time. No calls, no messages, nothing. I moved on as best I could. I threw myself into work and focused on building a life that didn't depend on their approval. Megan helped me close the legal matter completely, and soon, everything tied to the family fund was back under my name. It should have felt like a victory, but it didn't. Winning didn't heal the hole that betrayal had left inside me. Then one afternoon, while I was checking emails, I saw a familiar name appear on my screen, Mom. My heart jumped. For a few seconds, I just stared at the notification, not sure if I should open it. Part of me still longed to hear from her, even after everything that had happened. When I finally clicked it, the message was painfully short. "We made a mistake. Can we talk?" Just 7 words. No apology. No explanation. Just that. For a long moment, I couldn't move. My hands felt heavy, and a lump formed in my throat. It was strange. After everything, I still wanted to believe her. But deep down, I knew she wasn't reaching out because she finally understood how much she had hurt me. She was reaching out because the consequences of her actions had finally caught up with her. I thought about all those nights I cried myself to sleep, wondering what I had done wrong. I thought about how I begged for a reason when they sent that message saying they no longer trusted me. I thought about the endless silence that followed while I was left to pick up the pieces alone. Forgiveness wasn't something I could just hand out like it meant nothing. Not after everything they had taken from me, my peace, my trust, and my sense of belonging. So I didn't write a long message back. I didn't ask why or demand the truth. I had already spent too much of my life trying to understand their choices. They had made their bed, and now they were living in it. I typed my reply slowly, carefully choosing my words. Understood, but I'm done being your safety net. I read it twice before hitting send. My chest felt tight, but also lighter. It wasn't anger that I felt, it was closure. I didn't want revenge or reconciliation. I just wanted peace, and for the first time in years, I finally had it. After that, I didn't hear from her again. No calls, no follow-up messages. Maybe she understood that this time I meant it. I wasn't the daughter she could guilt or manipulate anymore. I was the woman who finally walked away. And even though it hurt, I knew it was the only way to protect the little bit of peace I had left. It's been over a year since that last message, and my life looks nothing like it used to. I live in Seattle now, far away from the small town where everything fell apart. I started my own consulting firm, something I'd dreamed about for years, but never had the courage to do before. Funny how losing everything can sometimes give you the push to finally build the life you deserve. My days are calm now. I wake up early, walk to a small cafe near my apartment, and spend my mornings working with clients who trust and respect me. There's no drama, no manipulation, and no one trying to control me with guilt or lies. For the first time, my peace isn't dependent on anyone else, it's mine. And that, I've realized, is the greatest revenge there is. My parents, on the other hand, didn't get the same ending. When their scheme unraveled, the community they once bragged to turned against them. The family business collapsed after the truth came out. My father lost his biggest clients, and my mother's reputation in town never recovered. Adam eventually moved away too, ashamed of how things turned out. I didn't have to do anything to make that happen. Their greed destroyed everything they built, all on its own. Sometimes people think revenge has to be loud, shouting, confrontation, or public humiliation. But I learned that real revenge is quiet. It's choosing to move forward while the people who hurt you stay stuck in the mess they created. I didn't have to seek payback. Life handled it for me. All I had to do was stay true to myself and keep going. There were moments, of course, when the pain crept back in. Sometimes, when I see a mother and daughter laughing together at the park, I feel a pang of what I lost. I used to have that, and I still wish things could have been different. But wishing won't change the past. What I can do is make sure my future isn't defined by their choices. Every now and then, I get updates about them through family friends. I hear that my parents rarely talk to anyone now. They live quietly, trying to avoid questions about what happened. I don't feel joy hearing that. They were still my parents once. But there's a strange sense of justice in knowing that the truth caught up with them without me having to lift a finger. My quiet revenge wasn't about destroying them. It was about rebuilding myself. I learned to stand on my own, to stop seeking validation from people who didn't deserve it. My success, my peace, and my happiness are things they can't take away anymore. So when people ask me if I ever forgave them, I tell them this. Forgiveness isn't always for the other person. Sometimes it's for yourself. And mine came in the form of peace, earned, steady, and silent. Because sometimes the best revenge really is living well enough that the people who betrayed you have to watch from a distance, knowing you turned their betrayal into your beginning. And that's exactly what I did.